Isn't that an extraordinary misinterpretation of something, a very critical bit of information?
She knew that because she knew the secret. She wrote the secret down.
How could she sway you away from Holy Mother Church?
They don't want to know about it, and they want to mischaracterize what she was saying.
You must reform yourselves now. You must save your souls now. So, Sister Lucia, who's one of the seers of Fatima, okay, she did this interview in 1957, and it's a famous interview. It's been talked about, written about. You know, there's been lots of people doing conferences, Fatima Center, and Orvis Audience all over it, right? One of the things she said in there is, don't wait for the Pope, don't wait for the bishops, don't wait for your priest, don't wait for anyone now in the hierarchy to send a call out to you to lead you to holiness. Don't wait anymore. Just don't do that. You've got to do that yourself. Now, this is in 1957. In 3 years, she's expecting that the third secret is going to be released.
Yeah.
She's telling us a few short years ahead of 1960, which is the anticipated revelation of this third secret, no longer to wait for the bishops anymore. Now, how could this seer, right, proven apparition, tell you to move away from the church hierarchy? How could she say, don't pay attention to the church, don't wait for the church to tell you, don't wait for the priests? How could she sway you away from Holy Mother Church? Unless she knew something about what was about to happen, what was coming, what was in the third secret, that she was essentially signaling this without spelling it out explicitly.
Yeah, you put it perfectly well. She obviously knew and implied, and in fact what she's saying there is an admission that she wanted to, she knew what the secret was about. The secret was about the apostasy in the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. They having defected from the church from the time of the Second Vatican Council, and then having found a new church, or more accurately, new sect. She knew that because she knew the secret. She wrote the secret down as she was instructed in 1943. 44. She was expecting the secret to come out in the 1960s, in 1960 at the latest, but she also seems to have had an idea that they were not going to let the secret out.
Yes, which explains her paleness, her being very sad, very emaciated. She was suffering. She was suffering in 1957, because that's how the interviewer, Father Fuentes, described her when he met with her in 1957. Later, he talked about it a year later, and he said she was sad, she was emaciated, she was very pale. She was suffering, so she must have been in agony over this, what was about to happen, what was about to come, and what she knew, right? She must have been in agony. We already know she was in agony to even write down the third secret. She couldn't even write it until the Holy Virgin Mary came and said, you may write it. And then she did it. She was in agony for months over that, couldn't just put pen to paper. So this was not some trivial little thing. It was, she knew what was going to happen. She had an inkling about it. She was suffering. She was in agony. And in this interview, she's really seizing the opportunity to give us as much warning as possible. As much warning as possible.
Yeah. And she basically says that the church hierarchy will not be the church hierarchy after a while. That's why you shouldn't listen to them.
Don't wait for them.
You shouldn't wait for them, she says it. She puts it in that context. You shouldn't wait for them.
Yeah.
But she actually means, and she couldn't be explicit because otherwise she would have given away the secret at that point. And it wasn't, didn't have the authority to do that. The Queen of Heaven had given the authority to the Pope to do that.
Yes.
She didn't have the authority, but she gave us a clue as to what was in it. And she had a sneaking suspicion that it wasn't going to be released because the secret was about the apostasy which was coming to the church. So she would have thought about the fact that, hey, maybe they're not going to release it, and so the secret will come out to be true.
100%.
And so I've got to say something, but I can't say the whole thing.
No, I'm going to say, you know what? You must reform yourselves now. You must save your souls now. And everyone that's being put on your path. That's specifically what she said. I'm paraphrasing. That's what she said. She said, you've got to do it now. You are responsible, the lay. Why would you say that? Unless you knew the church hierarchy is about to turn. It's about to turn. There's a revolution. And that's what the third secret was. It's undeniable. And this whole, it's got to be revealed in 1960. That year of 1960. This is God at work, right?
Yeah.
1960 was the preparation for the Vatican II Council. This secret needing to be revealed in 1960. By 1960, or at Lucia's death, whichever came first, which is what the Virgin Mary said to Lucia, and Lucia was responding to a question that was asked about the significance of 1960. So we really need to kind of read between the lines on this 1960. What was happening in the church in 1960? Well, there was a preparation for the Vatican II Council, and they had already commissioned. The preparatory phase had begun in 1959. And so therefore, you look at 1960 and you say to yourself, that is actually God at work. That is God really demonstrating to us and showing us what is about to happen and giving us concise sort of evidence. This coming together in 1960 is just incredible. It's undeniable, and if you've got eyes to see, you will see it.
Yes, you will. And there's a lot of people in the semi-traditional or pseudo-traditional church, forget about the Novus Ordo, I'm not going to go there even, that don't want to see it, and they don't want to know about it, and they want to mischaracterize what she was saying.
Yeah.
What she was saying there is that you shouldn't wait for the bishops. In other words, the bishops will not help you. In other words, the bishops are against you. Therefore, they may not be the bishops.
Yes.
It's to say that that was a devil getting in. Who was it?
I didn't see. So what about Father Gruner? I mean, he's was a Novus Ordo priest. He passed away a few years ago. He was this kind of soldier for the Fatima and its message, right? And he did all these conferences to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of viewers on his media, his website, YouTube, everywhere. Published papers, all sorts of stuff, where he basically said, the whole chastisement is the reduction of the number of priests. First he talks about wolves in sheep's clothing, and he talks about how God's worst chastisement is that, and he refers to St. Jude's and the book of Jeremiah, where God says to his people, those that are unrepentant, that I'm going to give you bad pastors, and that's my chastisement, and that is the worst chastisement. And Gruner agrees with that. But then immediately he says, Sister Lucia, what she was referring to in the 1957 interview was that she was referring to the reduction of priests from 1965. We lost 50,000 priests until 1975. That's horrendous. 10% drop in priests. That is what he says is the chastisement. Isn't that an extraordinary misinterpretation of a very critical bit of information that you really, if you're so studied and learned about Fatima, you really shouldn't miss?
No, he missed it. He missed it very significantly. The whole message of Fatima, and somebody like him who had seen it, who had read it, who had lived it for a long time, was about the apostasy in the church. Well, not in the church, in the hierarchy of the church, and the apostasy of the hierarchy, apostasy of the bishops, and starting from the top, the Pope. And he didn't want to see that. He, like I was saying before, he mischaracterized what Sister Lucy was saying in relation to the fact that we shouldn't wait for the bishops to help us out, and that we should do what we need to do in terms of saying the rosary and basically trying to stay in a state of grace.
Yeah.
So he mischaracterized it all.
He did, unfortunately. And one of the other things that he said was, Lucia said, "Don't worry about the priests. Don't blame the priests and the bishops and the cardinals. Don't blame them." And I thought to myself, well, hang on, that's not what Sister Lucia is talking about when she's saying, "Don't wait for them to call you to holiness. Do it on your own." That's what she says. It's not blame. Blame is a very, very erroneous characterization of what Sister Lucia says. And a part of me thinks, well, maybe he made a mistake, maybe he misinterpreted it. But another part of me thinks if he interpreted it correctly, he would no longer at that moment have a career.
Exactly.
He would no longer at that moment have a media empire. He would no longer have conferences and dinners and get-togethers and discussions and speeches, would he? Because what he would be saying is, The hierarchy has gone rogue.
The whole thing was that he would have lost Fatima Center if he hadn't gone along with the idea that the heretics in Rome were the popes. And he was not going to let that empire of his go away. That's why he so brazenly mischaracterized what she said about the priests.
Yeah.
She didn't say don't blame them at all. In other words, he's basically saying that the whole blame should go to somebody else or something else. Who? It was the modernists in the church that caused all this.
Yeah.
It was the modernists that defected. It wasn't the laity that defected. It was the people that were running things, the bishops, the episcopate, the pope, the archbishops, the cardinals. All of those people were responsible for this mess and for this disaster. It wasn't the laity, and he didn't point to that, unfortunately.
No, he didn't, and it's very sad, actually, if you think about it, because hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people have seen these speeches and conferences, and they've been misled. They've been completely misled about the true nature of what Sister Lucia was really alerting us to.
The problem with Father Gruner was that he had a business to run. That was the problem.
He did have a business. It was a business. And if he had admitted to the fact that the Vatican II was the ape of the church, then what business would he have had to continue doing what he was doing?
Yeah, he couldn't have done anything. He would have had to basically pack up and go home.
Correct.
Or do something else.
Correct.
Become a seed vacantist, a real Catholic.
Yeah, and who would follow him? Who would go to his conferences? No one.
People. Not many people.
Not many, no. He would have lost 80-90% of his following. He had a publication to protect. He had a network to protect. He had conferences, international conferences every year. Speeches that he gave, dinners that he attended. I mean, where would all that have gone?
It would have all disappeared overnight.
It would have all disappeared.
Because people think that Catholics are extremists now.
Yeah.
And that includes Catholics. That includes semi-trads or pseudo-trads.
Yeah.
They actually think that Catholics are extremists, whereas we Catholics, if we want to call ourselves seed vacantist, okay, fine. But we Catholics, we actually believe in the Pope. We actually believe in the papacy.
That's why we're saying a person that says there is no hell cannot be the Pope, because we love the office of the Pope so much, right?
Yeah.
That's so. Don't go telling me that we're schismatics and we're going off on our own little direction, have no authority in this and that, and we're coming up with our own religion. That's ridiculous.
No,
Absolutely ridiculous.
The only new religion here is the religion of Vatican II. That's the new religion. It's got a new head. It's called. His name is Pope, but that's a pseudo-Pope. It's just a title that's taken on, and he's not the Pope. He's not the real Catholic Pope, and that's the problem. That's the problem that we have, and I don't see any way out of it. I think it's the end. I really do.
Yeah.